Hi guys, this is the video for warm-up C. The first solo drill is going to be some hanging guard flows. First one is very simple, so we're going to start with the left foot forward, middle guard stance. We're going to transition into cross hanging guard and then step and cut, then transition into the right hanging guard and step and cut. So we are transitioning through the guard, stable, and then stepping with the cut. This is definitely going to be the most natural way to do it. So just make sure that you're doing your hanging guard and stepping and cutting with the same side. So if you're parrying to your right and cutting with your left, step with your left and then with the right. So that's the first one, is you parry in place and cut with the step, forward or back. And of course you could do this side to side, but generally we go up and down before. The next one is kind of a same side transition. So if you've been doing something like the previous one before, what we actually do is we step on everything. So I'm going to step and cut, and then I'm going to step into the guard, and then step and cut on the same side. So now every transition has a step, and every cut has a step. And so the nice thing about this is we get used to not being stuck on that hanging guard over type of a motion, because we want to be able to throw it at both sides. So this allows us to step under and then cut to the same side. And then we would do it with the other side. So from here I would step under and cut to the same side. Crossed side is usually a little bit more challenging for people, so take it slow and just practice. Okay. So those two hanging guard flow drills forward and back are the solo drill number 1 for warm-up C. The next one is one of my very favorite. It's the Zorn Ort flow drill. The Zorn Ort encompasses a lot of the really important things that you see in German longsword. So from a Vommtag guard, we're gonna cut, and essentially we are counter cutting somebody else's cut. So rather than parry to defend, we're going to counter cut. And I'm going to do it with a pivot and a projection because I want to cut into structure. Something we say at the club a lot is you cut to structure, you thrust to structure, you parry to structure. So you always want to have that good structure. So if we do it from the side, I'm going to parry, boom. And I'm doing it in a way that I've been happening in the center line. So I'm not cutting down, I'm not cutting across, I'm cutting to the man in a way that covers me, defends me from the cut. The next step is I'm going to thrust forward into a high thrust. So the Zorn Ort play is that you counter cut and then you run, you ride up and you stab them, right? You gain the center line and you thrust them. So now we're doing this as kind of a solo drill. So now we're going to Zorn Ort, and I like to make sure that I've wound my long edge so I would have a good mechanical advantage. And then if they were to parry that, I'd roll down and I just cut through, right on back. So the whole flow should look something like this. Just back every time. We don't really do this one backwards so much. The only variation that we would do, just to get used to the mechanic, is we might step back rather than pivot in place. Very rarely are you going to countercut stepping forward and then try to thrust somebody. You would be too close. The distance would be not well managed. But we can, in addition to the pivot in place, we can step back with that center line cut, and we would lunge, and the rest of the pattern is the same. So that is solo drill number 2. The 2 paired drills, and the first one we call the chaser drill. I noticed that a lot of the students, when they were cutting side to side, they would cut and pull back, not having good command of the center line and giving their opponent a chance to hit them, or they would always do a big roll around from the bind. So what we do is, this is a mass drill. The attacker is just going to practice kind of 1, 2, 1, 2, but they're trying to cut, use a little wheel, cut the offside, use a little wheel, and they're always cutting in front. They're chasing the defender, and they're trying to have a lot of pressure, and they're trying to cut through a bad parry. So this is definitely a mask drill when it's paired. And so they'll just, boom, they'll chase the other person who's just stepping back, trying to have a good parry, not getting the parry blown through. You don't necessarily have to hit really, really hard, but if you have good pressure and structure, if somebody has a weak parry, especially if they push over with their hands and the point's on the wrong side, they'll blow through and hit the mask. Doing this as a solo drill, what I would recommend, maybe do this in front of the mirror, and just make sure that you're cutting using a little wheel to turn over, little wheel to turn over, little wheel to turn over. Watch yourself in the mirror, try to make sure that you're not coming around and creating a big opening, or that you're not always doing a big hanging transition on everyone. It's not that that's wrong, but you don't want to have to be able to do that to have a good cutting motion. The last of the pair drills for warm-up C is, we call it the dance, and the way we do it is we have people start out in a plow, and they kind of extend to long point to make sure that the points are crossing, and then they will just dance around. They'll switch between different guards and different stances, passing steps, gathering steps, and I will call stop, and they want to see if they have maintained that same range. It's just a drill, particularly for the beginning students, to get used to having an understanding and a feel despite movement, where that kind of safe range is, where they're not so far out that they can't hit anybody with a step, but they're not so close to just going to get gapped in the face. For the solo drilling people, one thing I have had other people do is if they have the Pel, so you might do this at home instead of the dance drill if you don't have a partner. What you might do is you might start in a relaxed place, and you might just step up into a guard and make sure, am I at a place where I can step and hit with the right part of the sword? And then you kind of step way back and you relax, and you come in, and then you take another guard, and you see, and then you come back. And so you're just getting used to a sense of where is my effective range, where if I take this guard, can I step and hit with the right part of the sword? Sounds pretty basic, but I have actually found that a lot of beginning students, often they will come in and they'll get way too close because they don't feel comfortable in their motion, and then when they take a step and hit, they're hitting way too high up on the sword, which also means if the Pel were an opponent, they probably would have gotten stabbed in the face before they understood that the fight was happening. So you can just step back, shake it out, relax, move around a little bit, take a guard, any guard you want, and see if the step that you have is the right spot, just so you get a sense of what your effective range is. That's a good way to do a drill like the dance drill if you don't have a partner.